I started my company and I remember writing a check for $2,500. And I remember thinking, like, this is just the beginning. Like, this is just the first check. And, if anyone's listening and, they're thinking, oh my gosh, I want to do that too. Like, just know, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew I was going to. Like, I had I am such a big advocate of start before you're ready.
Hey, Thrivers, this is Sharon Land, and welcome to Season 3 with Thrive with Sharon podcast. I am your host. I am also a holistic psychotherapist, a metaphysician, and an internationally recognized healer. And my mission is to help to create great conversations with incredible human beings all over the globe that are doing things that are helping to change the landscape of our culture and to help people to really transform and heal. And I met this beautiful woman in September with one of our mutual friends, Amberly Lago, and who is like a master connector. And she just always just brings the best people together, and have absolutely fallen in love with her. Her name is Melissa Wiggins, and she goes by Coach Mummabear. And she is kindred in the sense that she is a fiery Scottish lassie and I am half Scottish. So I definitely connect with that. And she's also she's a lawyer who has turned a certified professional coach. And she also has an incredibly thriving podcast. She has a great community that she serves, and she does public speaking. And in addition to that, she and her husband have created a non-for-profit for children's research and cancer. And I can't wait to dig into just all of the nuances, who she is. But Melissa, welcome to the show today. I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm very excited to be here. It's a complete honor to be on your podcast and be around you. And I just appreciate you asking me, Lassie.
Oh my gosh, it was just a matter of time. Right? It was just a matter of time, right? So, and today's the time, today's the day. So I would love for you, I know I just did a brief little introduction, but I would love for you to share more about who you are and what got you to where you are now.
Sure. The short version, the mini version that we can get for these people. So I'm so excited to be here and serve on this podcast. And I know if you stick around and listen, we promise we will give you lots of golden nuggets. So you're going to enjoy this podcast. We have lots of really good stuff to share. A little about Melissa Wiggins, Coach Mummabear, as you said, I go by. So I started off my life in Scotland. Obviously, my accent is not American. And I married an American, which is how I ended up in Orlando, Florida, which is a little different than Edinburgh, Scotland, where I was living and working as a lawyer. Yeah. I always joke around, I used to walk up Princess Street in Edinburgh past a real castle, and now I live in Orlando with a Disney castle. It's not the same, people. So I am here in Orlando, Florida, and I will tell you, I have grown to love Orlando, Florida. It definitely feels like home now. And I am a mother of 5. I have a stepdaughter. I have 3 biological boys, and I have an adopted little girl. So it is a busy life. And I also run a community podcast, write all of the things, speak, and try to serve as much as I possibly can. I'm a master certified coach now. I don't lawyer, although I feel like all of those skills are extremely helpful in helping people see what they can't see.
Ooh, see what they can't see. You're speaking my language. So tell me about that.
So you and I have talked a little bit about this. Awareness for me is one of the biggest mishaps, I believe, in most women's life. And what I mean by that is I do not feel like we spend enough time there. we live in a very action orientated, goal orientated, decision making, leadership skills, all of these things. And if you're listening and you're like, hey, those are my things, stick with them. They're amazing. But in my experience, you can have so much success, Sharon, and so much money and so many things, and
Mhm.
yet be deeply lacking internally. And so my work, I always say, is about having your insides and your outsides match. So if
Mm.
your life looks what you consider to be beautiful and successful and, you know, enriched with all of the things you believe success is, and your
Mhm.
inside world is not that, then
Mhm.
let's go back and stay a little bit longer in awareness and figure out what you're not seeing and feeling and healing.
Mm. So since we're here, right? We're on this layer here. Let's talk about, how do you create that awareness? How, I'm sure that you have some great tools to be able to create that awareness. And by the way, that is definitely part of my methodology as well, right? And I have so much to say about awareness, but I think first it would be helpful to know some of your tools on how to create that awareness.
I think, like, I usually start by having lots of conversations where in the conversation I ask very specific questions that I have designed and
Mm.
that I have created, that are very simple, but no one asks them. And when they are asked, it is a game changer for people. And so most of the time that begins by slowing down a conversation. So a lot of conversations today are very fast, right? They're like exchanges of data, go, right? Kind of like sometimes podcasting can be, right? And that's
Yeah.
why, like, one of the things I love to do in podcasting is just like stop, repeat what we just said, like really give
Mhm.
people like the chance to pause for a second
Mhm.
and take in the little golden nugget that, like, they've been given. And that's kind of what coaching is, right? Like, that's what we do in the coaching world, is
Mhm.
we got you for 60 minutes and we're going to slow it down, and you're going to start telling us things, and then I'm going to slow you down and I'm going to ask you, is it a problem? Why is it a problem? Like, just really slowing things down for people and
Mhm.
asking them questions, making them pause and think. That is not something naturally, Sharon, that people do, right? Like, we're just like, we're talking about the problem, we believe it's a problem, we think it's a problem, and then the result is not what we want. And it's
Yeah.
like, right?
Definitely not in this hemisphere. It's interesting. In another lifetime, I was the director of a Japanese chemical company. Um, and pretty much all of the upper management was directly from Japan. So they were placed here by the parent company to help to run the company here and establish itself here. And then in walks me, um, you know, soon to be new mommy, all of these things, right? And the thing that I found so fascinating, and I had to acculturate myself to this whole new rhythm of how to communicate. So one of the things that in the Japanese culture was that they would listen, and they would close a lot of times. They would close their eyes. The individuals would close their eyes, and they would just kind of nod their head and go, or silence for like 4 minutes. Right. And so picture me, who is just like, okay, I'm gonna go over here, multitask over there, right?
Still the
Like
thing.
I'm at the bottom of the rung. So I'm like chomping at the bit to go, right? And they're just literally in these meetings where they're asking for like feedback, and we're talking about new strategies and new products and how we're going to onboard it and offboard it and da 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 da. And I knew enough to know that in the culture, like, you wait for the proper chain of command to respond and all of this stuff. And even this culture and like corporate business was new to me because I was working in social services. And so it was cringy for me in the beginning, really cringy. So I can totally see how, especially in this hemisphere, that we're going at a different rhythm. And to have those, I call them circuit breaks, are so valuable.
The heart, and I close my eyes a lot when I do that naturally. I like close it and think, now I just am aware of it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's true that we're there. Unfortunately, what it's doing is creating, especially like for your listeners, women who
Mm,
are extremely unhappy and
mm,
unfulfilled and stuck. And Sharon, they don't know how to be unstuck.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like really giving them permission in the coaching world to slow down, to speed up. And I have clients who are
Mm,
extremely successful, making millions of dollars every year, and they begin by like, okay, let's set the goals, let's do the, what are the action items, give me the 17 things that we need to do for to get from 1 million to 4 million to, and I'm like, oh,
so I
I'm
can
not
perform.
a coach.
Yeah.
Like, like there are business coaches and you need to, yes, do that. But I promise you, if you stay longer in awareness, or you create it as a practice that is a part of your life, right? A ongoing, I teach self-coaching. I have my own model that I use, that I teach my clients how to use. And you begin to be a self-soother, a self-coach, a
Mm,
self-responsible person. I promise you, you can make $4 million a year if you want, and also your insides will match.
yeah. I think that's so great. And I also, you're spot on. I think about at that time in my life, I was very high performing, right? And had a lot of things that I was performing to get away from. And so, like at that time, and this was like in, gosh, I don't even want to say when it is. It was like started in 1997, right? And then went until like 2007. But I remember always feeling like I had to perform. And I, at, after being at the company for a while, I had two children now. And so they were 6 years apart. And I was responsible for everything in the household and all of that. I was actually an entrepreneur. Also, I had started a business on the side that it was thriving. And I remember coming home one day from work, and it was a beautiful house, and the European sports car in the driveway, and the picket
Yep.
fence, and of course the husband, and everything looked great, and the kids had the matching coats, and the whole thing, right?
Of
And
course.
I went and I walked in the front door, and staring at it was a center hall or a side hall colonial, and I was staring at the stairs going up, and I was staring into the kitchen from the living room, and I was like, I don't get it. I thought that when I checked these boxes that I would be happy. And I feel like a failure to every aspect of my life, my children, my health, my marriage, my job, my family, my extended family. And I was like, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders because I wasn't in alignment.
Totally.
So I just love the fact that, at that time, I don't think there were any coaches that were helping women, but I
And no,
do think,
listen, there are so many incredible coaches. Like, I
yeah,
have yet to meet a bad one. Like, if
yeah,
you are in this industry, like, you are in it because you deeply love people and you
yeah,
deeply love serving them. And that is your purpose. Like, that's why you're here, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. Well, and I think that it's like the fact that a woman has created, and I'm not excluding, I actually work with all identities and
I do
all,
too, but
right?
mostly I work with women.
But I do think that, especially for any marginalized community, right? So women being at that time, um when my mother, when I was in high school, my mother didn't even have access to a checkbook or a bank account. Right. I mean, that's how real this is. That we literally have just time collapse, so many different things. And so the fact that we've been able to then create these beautiful communities, and that I love the community that you've created, and I love your message and your mission. And I also love the fact that you're the walking, talking example of that kind of deconstructing to reconstruct, that slowing down to be able to speed things up. Can you tell me a little bit more about, if we can just backtrack a little bit, because I want to hear more about, because you told the story and it's just so beautiful about your adopted daughter.
Mm-hmm. Charlie, Mary, Emma, Wiggins.
Yeah.
Anytime I post a picture of Charlie, the kids like, so my boys now, they will take my phone and they like look at my Instagram and they'll be like, Charlie gets the most views of all of your Instagram, Mom. And I'm like, yep, that's because she's adorable. So if you are listening, you should definitely go to my page and look at how adorable Charlie is, because she's the sweetest little child. So Charlie is from Colombia, and she was born addicted to drugs when she was in the hospital, and at 19 days old, removed from the hospital and put into an orphanage. So she was taken from her birth mother like instantly when she was born, because the mother was on drugs. And she was in that orphanage with 50 other kids until we picked her up on her second birthday. So we wanted to adopt ever since we met. This was something that we had spoken about. We're going to adopt. This is the thing we want to do. And then our firstborn son was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And at the same time he was diagnosed, I was pregnant with twins. They were born 10 days after his diagnosis. So the adoption word, Sharon, was not entered in our home for a very long time. It was like, yeah, this is not even a conversation. Like, this box is on the shelf.
Yeah.
We may bring it down, but we're not even talking about that box up there. And we, sort of persevered and, traveled around the world for Cannon, our son, to save his life, and successfully did. He is a survivor. He's a little 5th grader at school. I biked with him to school this morning. And then it was like Cannon got like the all clear and life felt just peaceful, and there was just a space, and we kept talking about Charlie like she was just a part of our family. We'd be like, well, your sister will sit in that car seat when she comes. And then eventually we were like, well, we should probably like call an agency or like figure how you even do this. And I just kept praying, and I'm very spiritual. I look for signs a lot, and it's just a big part of who I am. And I kept praying, and I prayed to God, and I was praying like, please send me like the biggest sign ever that this child is supposed to be my daughter. And the adoption agency called, and I had never had a call about another child ever before. No other children. I never seen another child's file. And they sent me an email. They sent me an email asking me to call. Then they called me, and then on the call they said, we have a little girl. She's 18 months old, and she was born October 14th of 2017. And I remember exactly where I was. I was in my office. I was like shaking. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And they said she was born October 14th. And I said, that's my birthday. Like, and Sharon, in Scotland, birthdays are a huge freaking deal. Okay, my mom made these things magical. Now I feel the pressure of this with my kids, but like, I literally had a magical birthday. Everybody celebrated, all the cousins. It was just like a very big thing, and I still celebrate very big every birthday. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my birthday. This is the child. Like, this is the sign. And for me, like, it was over at that point. But I'm not the only part of the equation. There is
Sure.
also a husband who
Yeah.
gets to also decide. And then they sort of followed up with, this child is going to require several surgeries. She's going to need to be opened from ear to ear several times. She has craniosynostosis, which basically means, her head kind of closed up too early. And so she kind of had like one eye up here, one down here. She had a sort of lump. It was all, her head was completely mangled and they had never fixed it. Had this child been born in America, it would have been fixed at birth, is how it
Right.
works.
Right.
But she was 2 and it was causing like compression on her brain. So her
Oh.
brain wasn't able to grow and the head was just a disaster. So that was sort of what came after the birthday. And I'm like, really, God, you give me the birthday. And now I have I need to like get in touch with neurosurgeons to find out. But the really amazing thing about it is our nonprofit for pediatric cancer, our first trial we ever funded was for brain cancer research. And so I know more neurosurgeons than any other type of surgeon, and of all the types of surgeons. And I literally like sent a text to a friend sent another friend a text, and then within a week I had a Spanish speaking neurosurgeon, world known, reviewing this little girl in Medellin, Colombia, reviewing her file. He called me like, and said I could fix it. And she'd need to be in the hospital for a week. She'd have to come back 6 months later. She'd be in the hospital for a week. Her head will blow up. It'll be painful. I can do it.
Wow.
And so then it became like, can we get her on our health insurance as an adopted child? Like, how do we work all of that out?
Yeah. There's so many logistical things.
So many.
Yeah.
And we had like a week to make the decision.
Oh,
And
gosh.
my husband was like, we've like beat cancer, and I thought we weren't going to pick a child or have a child that had any like big medical things. And I'm like, but her birthday is September 14th. And it just like all of it came together, like a surgeon who literally, we didn't need to travel, we got to do it locally. The surgeries were perfect and beautiful. She went to the hospital for a week to 10 days, left, had another surgery 6 months later, and has had zero issues with anything brain related or anything mental capacity related. She is the smartest 5-year-old that I have ever met.
What a tremendous experience, and what a test of faith, and also your relationship, your marriage, your family system. I mean, that's a huge upheaval. And for me to go back and review, and I hope everybody else does, because you kind of like share a lot of the points on the timeline of this experience. And to see it all unfolding and to see it now in hindsight, it even still is mind-boggling. But I can't even imagine when you're looking at it from approaching the situation, just how much that must have caused you to pause and question. And like, did you batten down the hatches? Like, how did you secure and create that tethering for yourself so you didn't feel like you were being just kind of carried away on this potential, like huge potential of any and all things could happen from that point?
You there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Nope.
Can you hear me?
Can't hear you. Oh, I can hear you now. It just went away there for a sec.
Interesting. Sorry. So my question was, how did you keep yourself grounded? That was a big storm, even though it was exciting and there were a lot of divine signs. I'm sure that as you were encroaching every new decision, that it definitely would have felt overwhelming. How did you keep yourself whole?
So I I really took the whole entire process as, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but this is the truth, as like a part-time job. So I really did compartmentalize it. So I was the CEO at that time, and I was working like a full-time job. And so I had to take this, and you do really get baby brain with it, which it's very hard to do. Like, it's, you think about it, especially once you have
Yeah.
the picture of the child, and you know you have to wait a
Yeah.
year or so before you touch them, feel them, have them in your life. And I really just got very, very sort of strict with myself, Sharon. I was like, during
Mm.
the day, I'm a CEO and I work full time. Then I'm a mom. And then when everybody's in bed, I'm applying for adopting a child. And that's really how I did it. Like, it was like, I didn't let a lot of any of the other parts feed into my time with my kids or my job at the time. And
Wow.
part of the way I did that was because I was planning the exit for about a year and a half from the CEO position, so that I could spend at least 6 months to a year with Charlie, as many hours as I possibly could, because I wanted to create the attachment bond with her. And so
Sure.
I was very intentional with that. And I did a lot of courses online and a lot of learning how to attach to a child, who, I mean, we got very lucky with Charlie, even though she didn't have a mother bond necessarily in terms of the traditional sense. She was in a orphanage that they really did appear to love her greatly, and she was there for
Mm.
2 years, and they were crying when she left.
Oh.
So she was like to them a part of their family there, and that's, you
Mhm.
know, all they had ever known. So I feel like she learned attachment and love. It was just getting her to attach to me as the mother. But I mean, it happened like, I mean, her and I spent every day together for a long time. And then in Colombia, we spent 30 days, her and I, you know, just every day, all
Yeah.
day, without my other children. And, you know, by the end, she was, you know, very attached. And she still is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
You know
now
what?
it's
You could,
3 years later. Now it's like we just celebrated 3 years of her home Thanksgiving week.
I know that it was
Yeah.
so beautiful to see. And I think that I have not been through that experience myself, but just through being a witness to other individuals and families who have been through the adoption experience, especially having children pre-existing in the home, that are all your biological children. And I know that you have a step child as
God.
well, but that there is that biological connection. And then to adopt, that it can be a little challenging. And so the preparation for that is key. But I what I marvel at the most is how much your your sons just fully embrace,
I mean, they love her so much.
fully embrace. Like it was always just they were just waiting for her to arrive.
I think we really were very intentional with the age that we
Mm,
adopted. So we really tried to keep it in the sort of biological order.
mm.
And so we were approved for a child from 2 to 5, which would come up to the back of, my twins were 5 at the time. And I was really hoping for like a 5-year old.
Yeah.
but you know, Charlie ended up being like just the right age. And of course, again, like, I believe all of that is just part of it. You know, it was
Yeah.
it's always supposed to be. And she is deeply loved, and, you know, the light of our life. And the boys love her very, very, very much, and she loves them very much. Like, it's adorable.
It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful to see. And I just thank you again for sharing that. And just congratulations to your beautiful growing family and grown family. And just I think it's a testament to the fact that, you know, you can take on these challenging aspects of expanding your family, and also continue to grow and expand your own self, and also your own professional career. You're such a beautiful example of really being able to do all of those things and mastering it, not in a way where it's perfect, but mastering it in a way where it creates that organic expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So everywhere you should, that's the one thing I noticed about you, especially there's a lot of energy there at the mastermind we were at, right? So there was a lot of feminine energy, right? And a lot of anticipatory energy. But the thing that I loved is that you just were you.
I
Just
looked at the video back. I watched a piece of it and I was like, oh, I really said the F word a little too much. I should probably like rein that in. But I sent it to my coach. And I was like, I have to tell you though, the only reason why I said F as many times as I did in that speech was because we were 3 days in. We were basically all sisters at this point, okay? And the F's were just flying like they were adjectives, okay?
they were.
In a regular speech on a keynote on a stage, I might not say the F word too many times, okay? But it was like we were just like a group of girls hanging out, like telling each other like the things that have worked in our lives. And that makes me very comfortable. And when
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable, if you're listening and you know me and I'm comfortable around you, I will drop the F word. So.
Yeah. Sometimes just it's the best expletive, right? It just
Funny.
covers all the bases. But you also your presentation went right after Bedros's, so it was like there was also that,
I was
right?
so stressed about that. I was like, why? Why am I going after Bedros, who's paid so much money to stand on stage? But it ended up being just perfect, of course, like
It
always, right?
was
It was fun. I got to bring him up on the stage with us, and it was like the whole experience was phenomenal, and
so
I just
special.
love everything that all the support and all the love that is coming from that event is just like, wow, I can't wait to see like in 5 years time, you know?
Yeah, it's a beautiful community, and I love being a part of it as well. It's just really nice, and I think that everybody um is comfortable. Most are comfortable taking different positions within the kind of the movement, right? So as things continue to progress and move forward, then everybody gets to lend their own area of expertise, and they're very much supported, and they also get to support others. And I think it's beautiful, and that's really where that divine timing in that um, just being open to show up and not have an agenda is so important. And that was just so also clear with you as well. It was really beautiful to witness. So I'm going to ask you, because you talk a lot about this, um, having winning at life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would like to know what that picture looks like for you. How would
Yeah.
you describe winning at life?
For me personally,
Or sure, or in general, because I know that's something that you coach on.
yeah,
This is one of your kind of your pillars.
it is. I say often I want to help women wake up, and that's the awareness piece. And I want to help women win. So I say it all the time. Are you ready to wake up and win, lassies? Like, let's go, right? And I think the winning part for me really came from coaching so many women who were so freaking hard on themselves, Sharon,
Mm,
where it felt like no matter what they did, there was
mm,
no winning. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you are like that you just listed to me 17 things that you did today and you don't feel like you're winning at life. Like I'm, so I think like part of my work is reframing, kind of like what you
mm.
said earlier, like deconstruct to reconstruct the
Yeah,
idea of what is winning. Like what is
yeah,
it, right? Like what
yeah.
is it to you? And I really do a lot of coaching around figuring out what winning is for you. Because if I don't do that and we don't figure out what that is, no matter how far you go, no matter how many companies you create, sell, whatever, it can be Fortune 500, it can be a side gig, no matter what you do, it's not going to feel good inside. So
Right.
let's get very, very clear on what winning looks like for you, what it feels like. How will you know, Sharon, that you're winning? Like, how will you know, right? Like, how will you know if we don't measure, if we don't evaluate, if we don't look at it? How will I know I'm doing a good freaking job at life? Right? So instead, what we do generally is, when we're not coached, is we set a goal and we like figure out how to get there, instead of figuring out, is that part of what's gonna make me feel like I'm winning?
Right. Right. Right.
So
Yeah. And so the converse to that is something that we see, you and I see all of the time, which is why people land in front of us, which is, gosh, I've done all of the things. And so I created, just like you've created, what you needed.
yeah,
Right. I've created what I needed that wasn't accessible to me. And so you see a lot of very successful people, but they're really struggling. And so they think the answer then is just to work harder,
busy. Yeah.
make more money. And it becomes a hamster wheel. And it's not until some sort of aspect of their life really starts to scream or falls apart, right? Whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's relationship, having an existential crisis, all of the things, right? And so not that everybody needs a coach just for that particular thing, but why wouldn't you?
The other side of it that I look at it like this, I look at it as two ways. Like, yes, if you like, often people come to us because one of the things you just listed, right? The other way I look at it is pay your insurance. Pay your insurance.
Yeah.
Coaching is insurance. You're going to show up and you're going to pay it and you're going to do the work, and maybe you'll need it and maybe you won't. But you have it, right? Like, so I wish, and I love what you said about like we create what we need. I always say that like my clients are me 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's my clients. Like, that's who they are. Like, and I know where they're going. Like, I know the path to empowerment. And like, that's what we created. But we had to do it first, right? Like, we had to go through those painful lessons. I tell my clients all the time, I will never, ever, ever ask you to do anything or suggest or poke you in the direction of something I have not done myself, ever. Right?
Right.
Like,
Right. Because I think that that's where we can really get to the root understanding and meaning of wise counsel. So to me, wisdom means it's not just something that you read in a book or you learned, but it's actually something that you've lived and embodied. So yeah, it's not like you're saying, I'm going to make what my problem was your problem so I can solve for X. It's like, no, actually, I can see that before you even walk in the room. I can feel the energy of it. I know it. It's one of those things. And so when you embody that wisdom, then you really can be that wise counsel. And there's just something so safe and sacred about that.
I feel like that is like, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but your love and your passion, Sharon, is creating safety. And I feel like some people think that that sounds like a woo-woo thing. And I am like, no, like, I promise you, if I feel like the biggest growth and the biggest life changes and shifts I see in my client comes from the first time in their life they can say things that they have never said to anybody before.
Yeah.
And they can be vulnerable. They don't have to be the CEO with either of us. And in fact, I'll tell them, you can take the CEO mask off. She doesn't need to be here. I'm not here for her. Like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And of course, you need that in the corporate world and entrepreneur life. I understand it. But if you don't know how to get back to the person you are without the CEO mask, that's when the problems happen.
That's a big problem. 100%. Yeah. So I love everything that you said. I just think there's so many amazing golden nuggets in there. And I hope that people are listening and taking notes, because this is such a wonderful roadmap. I want to talk a little bit about money and money mindset, because I know this is also something that you do very well. So, and you're also the walking, talking, living, breathing example. I mean, when you told this story about the fact that, there wasn't enough research for your son's particular type of cancer, and you were like, this is not acceptable. And I don't know exactly how you said it. I'm going to say it very poorly. But you said, I wanted to be the one to write the check to fund the research.
It gives me chills every time, because I read a book called Limitless, and I refer to it in every speech, and I want every woman in the planet to read it. It's by Laura Gosling, and everyone calls her LGO. She's a phenomenal person. Yeah. But in that, there was this quote where she was saying and talking about how she worked in the nonprofit world and helping nonprofits. And then she decided to be the woman that writes the check. And I swear, Sharon, I felt like an outer body experience doing the work. Like, you can do that? Like, we can write the checks? Like, seriously, we can do that? Like, it was like someone tapped me on the shoulder and was like, Lassie, go make the money and write bigger checks. Stop asking people for the money. Now I pay people, the foundation pays people to ask people for money, and they make way more money than I ever could have made for the foundation. So it worked exactly how it was supposed to. But and I did. I started my company, and I remember writing a check for $2,500. And I remember thinking, like, this is just the beginning. Like, this is just the first check. And, if anyone's listening and, they're thinking, oh my gosh, I want to do that too. Like, just know, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew I was going to. Like, I had I am such a big advocate of start before you're ready. Start before you're ready. Like, people learn so much in the doing, like swimming. Like, you can't stand at the side of the pool and learn how to swim. You really do have to jump in, right? You have to get on the bicycle. You have to stand behind the actual part in the car with the wheel and the accelerator and the brake. Like, we must do. And I think as women, we get so scared to start. And because we're scared to start, we don't get to write the checks.
Yeah. And I think that, from a spiritual perspective, so as you're talking, of course, I'm always thinking about just the things that are very near and dear to me with a lot of my spiritual beliefs and part of my practice, right? So for me, part of the practice is getting to the point where you don't know anything.
Yes.
Right?
Like, if you're there, like, I'm clapping, like, for people listening. Sorry, that's probably obnoxious in your ear, but like, I'm clapping because yes, you are growing. Like that quote, you're either protecting or growing. Like, I feel that deeply in my soul. Like, there are seasons when I know I'm protecting and I'm not ready to unbox, and that's okay. If you're listening and you're like, this box is too hard to open right now, totally get it. But if you're using it as an excuse of not moving forward, just ask yourself why. Like, what are you scared of? Like, what are you protecting yourself from? Because you're protecting or growing.
Right. And, the thing is that growth doesn't always come from having evidence of something, right? So growth just comes from your expansion of your own consciousness and comfort zone. And so a lot of those things are so nuanced, and they're not what we think, right? They're not writing the check. They're the practice of preparation, the daily practice of preparation for those moments. And I have, I love the clients that I work with. And that's one of the things that I love about what I do is I get to love them. It's like so good. Right. And so one of my clients last night, they called me, and they had just had a very magical moment where they were a witness to themselves in a time of their life that they have only dreamt of up until this point. And
Wow.
they literally like, it was an amazing day, and they did this incredible thing, and they got in their car and they just came undone and wept.
So beautiful.
And I said, and they were just like, I don't know how, like, it was just, I don't even know how all of this happened. It was just magical and whatever. And I said, the magic is in the practice of the preparation. You have been practicing and preparing for this for years.
Mm-hmm.
And now you just had that moment where you actually could feel it all coming together. And that's the magic of it, right? Luck is luck, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
However, it's just continuing to show up and allow yourself to be the instrument, allow yourself to be the vessel, allow yourself to be the one of service in some way, in a very organic and authentic way. And all of a sudden things just start, it just starts to unfold, and you say yes to opportunities. I said this I was doing a podcast and interview with somebody else, and I said, one of my things this year is I don't have New Year's resolutions. I just have New Year's energetic vibrations. So one of the vibrations for me was saying yes.
I had a year of that. Have you read Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes?
No,
Oh my God.
no, she's
Okay, first of
incredible.
all, listen to it on
Yeah.
as an audible. It is her reading it, and there are actual like keynote speech parts in the book. It
Mhm.
was like a game-changing book for me. The Year of
Amazing.
Yes, Shonda Rhimes. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's about saying yes to you. It's about saying yes to life. It's about saying yes to expansion. It's about saying yes to opportunities. It's about saying yes to health. It's about saying yes to things that are alignment with yourself, not saying yes to things that spread you thin, that to continue to confirm all of the things that you fear about yourself, or that you think about yourself in your own secret hidden identity of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not short enough, right? So you say yes to the things that validate what you know deep down inside of yourself that you want more of the world to see, right? And it's beautiful. It's just so beautiful. So yeah. So that is abundance, in my opinion. Right. So that lends itself to that money mindset that you're talking about.
Right.
Love it.
It's so, I love everything that you just said. And the thing that I was thinking about when you were saying is, one of the things that I really try to work on with the women I work on is the patience piece. So you just said it there, like it took 2 to 3 years to get there. I really I do it like a disclaimer. I'm like, you will probably lose friends being coached by me. You will probably end relationships, start new relationships. Like these are like, I will say it in a jesty way, but I'm like, in time, you will see yourself for who you truly are and love and accept her, trust her, and then you will be, you want to talk about unhinged, untamed? Like, yes, in the best, most beautiful way.
Yes.
But you have to be patient, Lassie. So if you're listening and you're like, I've done 6 months of journaling and meditation and moving my freaking body and like nothing engaging people. Like, if you've done that, just know that Sharon and I have also done those things. Okay?
Yes.
Like, we understand and we appreciate. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Do not stop before the
Mm.
magic happens.
No, the magic is where it's at. And the more that you grow, the more you see the magic in all of these moments. And because we change the way that we see the world and ourselves. So just like one of the things that are another pillar for you is that learning how to really love yourself, right? Really learn to have the relationship with yourself. And so I think that for me, one of the most powerful and poignant moments that anybody can have is when they actually shift the lens that they see the world in. There's a saying, it's like once the universe shares their glasses with you and puts them on, there's a couple rules. The first thing is you can't take them off.
Yeah.
And the second thing is you can't force anyone else to see what you see.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And like in my keynote speech that I do, I have those different glasses, remember that?
Yes, that's right.
They
Yes.
just turn them on. And that is all about perception, right? Because we know our thoughts become our feelings become our beliefs. And I spend a lot of time on belief work because I think, like you just said, like if I don't, or you listener, do not love yourself, there is something very important that you need to know. You don't trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, what you do is you give responsibility for your life to someone else.
Right. Yep.
You give it to the opinions of Aunt Peggy, you give it to your husband, you give it to your grown up children, but you don't have it. And if you don't, then you have all of the responsibilities of your life and none of the authority.
Yes. Totally correct. And I'll add that it comes in percentages. It doesn't happen like as soon as you're aware of it, then all of a sudden that it's going to change. Yeah. You and I are still, I'm sure, in the process. I'll admit for myself, like we're still in the process of learning more trust, because you can, if your world is really small, you can like figure out the square footage of your space and like master all of it and like learn your trust and be able to like walk blindfolded and do flips and cartwheels and all that stuff. Right. And then you go push it out a little bit and you're just like, whoop.
Whoa, what just happened here?
I don't know if I can trust myself. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I can trust myself paying a team of 15 people. I don't know if I can trust myself to love someone well. I don't know if I can trust myself to not hurt anyone else. Right.
I say to my clients all the time, I will be your biggest cheerleader until you become your biggest cheerleader.
Oh God, Melissa, I love that.
That's the goal, right? Like I'm here. I believe in you. I know you can do it. I see it in you. And I will happily pass that fluffy thing or whatever you call it. What is it called? I don't even know.
The baton, the pom-pom. Yeah.
I will pass the baton when you're ready to take it.
Yeah.
And you will be ready. You just have to be patient, lassies.
Yeah. And you'll have another baton too, just to be cheering them on. I know. I know you. I know you will. This has just been such a delicious conversation, just so heart-filling and fulfilling, and just hearing more. And I just couldn't wait for you to share more about yourself, because I knew all of these things about you. And I just wanted so much for our community to be able to know you, to really know you.
I am really, really grateful that you asked me, and you and I both are very grateful by nature. Those are our values. Like that is, and I think that being grateful allows you to really enjoy small moments like this. Like we both said that, like we both love podcasting. We get to have conversations and a cup of tea, and it's like deep and meaningful, and it's not surface, and it's real and raw. And how freaking lucky are we that this is our job? Like, how is this real life, Sharon? Like,
I know. At the end of the day, I review my day as part of my practice. And there are moments where I can't even get to the end of the day because I sit there in awe of like, I get to do this, or I just was like the Sherpa for someone in the greatest mountain climb of their life. And like the I will never lose sight of that trust that somebody else has in me. And that just makes me want to grow and be a better person every single day.
Yeah,
Every single day.
100%. Like that, and that's, when I do my retreats, that's what it's all about.
Mm,
Like
that's
creating
right.
a
Your
safe
retreats. We didn't even
space.
talk about this.
Like I love retreat life because there is nothing quite like it. Like there's really nothing quite like a bunch of women who are together. I mean, and they're ready to do the work. If you've hosted retreats, like, these women are scared and excited and ready and creating that safe space. It's not something that either of us obviously take for granted and never
Mm.
will, but it is rare. It's rare for women to feel safe.
Yeah, because many times, especially working mothers, there's so many distractions
Yeah.
that keeps you away from presence,
Yeah.
right? So to go to a retreat, it's like, oh, well, where's all the distractions? Oh, hey, look, there I am. Holy cow, how did that happen? Right? Like those jeans I packed don't even fit me anymore.
I
I've
know.
been living in sweats and
I
right,
know.
like it's all of the things. And I haven't hosted a retreat yet, so that's on my vision board for next year, after a few other things that are coming to fruition and manifesting.
It's
So
funny, like the retreats, like start before you're ready, right? Like I had never done it. I've done 4 retreats now. I do them like every 6 months now. So actually maybe no, 4, yeah. And that was the same. I remember doing the first one and being so, everything has to be perfect, and what if they don't,
yeah.
have a shift, and like it was like so different. And then like now I'm just like, oh, I know whatever's supposed to happen here. I've done all the preparation,
Yeah.
all of the things are in
Yeah.
place. Like, and every single time they get better and better, and the
Yeah.
growth is, and we all have, we have our own community, and everybody puts in there, what's happening in their life now, and something that happened based on something in the retreat, or they voice text me and they say, I had one client who, she worked behind the scene in her husband's company, and now she's like on the stage with him, and it's like a
Ah.
year later, and it's just completely transformed her life, not because of
Mhm.
something I did, but because she felt safe to
Right.
voice something that she wasn't sure if she
Yeah.
could do it, or
Yeah.
like, can I dream that big? Or like,
Hmm.
and then you start asking these questions in a safe, trusting environment.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden now women hear themselves say their words.
Oh yeah. Oof.
It's do it, Sharon. Do it.
Women help
Like
get to.
2023 for you. Fall. Let's go.
Yeah, yep. Well, we've got the book launch on March 13th. So that's happening.
That's so
So
exciting.
that's taking a lot of my focus. And I'm also doing some beautiful things with my business and serving even more. So, but it'll all happen. It'll all happen. I totally trust that because I know that if it's put in your heart, then you know it's meant to be, right?
Yeah, sometimes you're like, really?
Oh yeah. Oh
Why?
yes. That's on the
Oh.
daily.
And
That
and
happens
it's
on the
and it's
daily
funny,
too.
that was like adoption, like when I was telling you, like in the beginning, with the canon stuff, and then I just kept dreaming and dreaming and dreaming about adopting this little girl, and I remember waking up and being like, for goodness sake, like, can I sleep? Okay, I'll call the agency. Like, it's like, if it's supposed to be, you cannot get away from it. Like
No, you
it will
can't.
follow you.
It does. It does. It follows you
Wow.
like a lost puppy until you
And
take
it's
care of it.
probably, like you with your book. That's probably like, like you're here, you're writing it, it's coming out. Like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. But how long has that lived in your head?
Oh my gosh. I started years. Years. I went back to some, so I don't do it as much now, but I had a very, very serious practice of affirmations where it's very spiritually connected. And so this was in 2017. And my affirmation was, I'm grateful for authoring my first book and being a bestseller. 2017. So that's where the patience comes in, right? And divine timing.
What have you learned from this podcast? Patience. It is a virtue.
Yes, it sure is. It sure is. Well, Melissa, I just want to thank you again. I just love you so much. And you're just such a wonderful human being, and you're serving in such beautiful ways. And everybody who works with you and knows you is so blessed. You're just a gift. You really are. And I hope that you will come back again and join us and just welcome to the community as well. We're a very loving, growing community. And everybody who's listening, I'm going to list all of Melissa's contact information, ways to be able to reach out to her. She's very responsive. So I'm sure if you have any questions about this particular podcast or anything for her, she will be sure, or her assistant, to get
Sharon
back.
and I, we love voice noting, so feel free to voice note. I am like a voice note junkie. I love a voice note.
I'm the queen of voice notes. Absolutely the queen of voice notes. And it's so funny because I keep getting these like imposters on Instagram, and I'm like, everybody who knows me knows that I would never send like a text message. It's always a voice note.
I love it. I love it.
But anyhow, thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Yes, I appreciate you. And thank you for spending all of this time. And everybody, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you found us, on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and all of the other audio platforms. And please make sure that you write a review, and leave a comment, because we love to hear all different types of feedback. There's, any engagement is good engagement as far as we're concerned. So thank you again. And until the next time, peace and love.